Han stopped walking. Because there are too many of them and too few of us. And our ship is dying. He gestured around them. The Cronus exists in a temporal bubble that's slowly collapsing. We have weeks, maybe months before it fails completely. They entered engineering, where Lee gasped audibly. At the center of the room floated what looked like a small sun, contained within spinning rings of metal. Parts of it flickered in and out of existence. Our temporal core, Han explained. The technology that makes everything else possible. An engineer looked up from his console. Captain, we've stabilized the fluctuations for now, but I don't know how long it will hold. Han nodded. Thank you, gang. As they left engineering, Lee studied the ship with new eyes. What do you want from us, Captain Han? Partnership, he said without hesitation. We have technology and knowledge you need. You have resources and manpower we lack. Together, we might be able to stop the Arcturus before they gain a foothold. And if our leaders don't believe you, if they want to take your ship instead. Han's expression darkened. Then humanity falls. Again. They reached a viewport, and Lee stared out at the stars. They looked the same as always, peaceful and distant. Hard to imagine they hid an enemy preparing to destroy everything she knew. I believe you, she said finally, but convincing others won't be easy. It never is, Han replied. But we don't have the luxury of time. He pressed a small device into her hand. This contains proof, sensor readings, battle recordings, even DNA samples from Arcturus prisoners. Show this to your Admiral Park. As Lee took the device, the ship shuddered slightly. For just a moment, the wall beside them became transparent, then solid again. The temporal distortions are getting worse, Han said quietly. We need to move quickly. Lee nodded, suddenly aware that she was standing in a piece of history that hadn't happened yet, on a warship so advanced it shouldn't even exist. The Great Hall of Earth Command Headquarters buzzed with angry voices. Representatives from 12 alien species sat around a massive oval table, their faces showing various signs of distress and anger. At the center of the storm stood Captain Tahoe Han, his uniform now cleaned and pressed, but still bearing the strange insignia of a future that might never exist. Admiral Do-Yoon Choi, head of Earth Defense, raised his hands for silence. We will hear all concerns in turn, he said firmly. But let us remember that the UES Kronos arrived in our space, destroyed raiders that were attacking our colony, and has shared vital intelligence. Intelligence that cannot be verified. The speaker was a tall, thin alien with pale blue skin. Ambassador Mrel of the Volani Imperium slammed his three-fingered hand on the table. This ship appears with technology centuries beyond current human development. The Technological Advancement Treaty clearly states. The treaty doesn't cover time travel, interrupted Captain Minji Lee, who sat beside Admiral Choi. No one fought to include that. Quiet laughter rippled through the human delegation, but the aliens didn't join in. This is no laughing matter, hissed Ambassador Mrel. If humans leap forward a century in military technology overnight, it destabilizes the entire galactic community. Captain Han stepped forward. With respect, Ambassador, in my timeline, there is no galactic community 50 years from now. The Arcturus Collective destroys it. A murmur ran through the room. An alien with ridged orange skin stood up. We have no record of this collective in any of our databases. Because they're hiding, Han replied. He activated a small device, and a hologram appeared above the table. It showed what looked like normal asteroids, until the image zoomed in to reveal artificial structures hidden within. They disguise their bases as natural phenomena. They infiltrate societies before attacking. By the time anyone realizes what's happening, it's too late. Admiral Choi nodded to a junior officer, who distributed data tablets to everyone present. Captain Han has provided coordinates for 23 suspected Arcturus outposts in our region of space. We've already confirmed 3 of them exist exactly where he said they would be. The room grew quieter as the delegate studied the information. If this is true, said a small furry delegate, Why have they not attacked yet? They're not ready, Han explained. In my timeline, their first open assault begins 18 months from now. They target isolated colonies first, making each attack look like an accident or the work of raiders. While the delegates debated, Lee noticed 6 military officers slip into the room and take positions near the doors. She caught Admiral Choi's eye, who gave her a tiny nod. Lee had served under Choi long enough to recognize when higher orders were being followed. Someone had decided the Kronos was too valuable to share. As the meeting dragged on, Lee quietly moved closer to Han. "We may have a problem," she whispered. "I think Earth Command plans to seize your ship." Han didn't look surprised. "I expected as much. Wouldn't your leaders do the same in this situation?" Before Lee could answer, the doors burst open. Armed soldiers entered, led by General G, the head of Special Operations. "Captain Taho Han," General G announced, "by order of Earth Command, the UES Kronos is hereby placed under our protection. You and your crew will continue to serve as advisors." "You mean prisoners," Han corrected calmly. The alien delegates erupted in protest. Ambassador Mrel stood tall, his voice cutting through the noise. "This confirms our worst fears. If Earth attempts to claim this technology for itself, we will be forced to take action." Admiral Choi looked pained. "This isn't what we agreed to," he said to General G. "Orders from the highest level," Jai replied without apology. Captain Lee stepped between the soldiers and Han. "This is a mistake. We need partnership, not control." Han placed a hand on her shoulder. "It's all right, Captain Lee." Then, more quietly, "My people expected this. Watch the Kronos in exactly 10 minutes." As if on cue, alarms began blaring. A junior officer rushed in, her face pale. "General G. The Kronos. It's gone." "What do you mean, gone?" G demanded. "It just vanished from orbit. All our sensors showed is a temporal distortion where it used to be." Han smiled slightly. "The Kronos has certain defensive capabilities." General G's face reddened with anger. "Where is your ship, Captain?" "Safe," Han replied. "And it will remain that way until we establish a true alliance, not a takeover." The room fell silent as everyone realized the balance of power had shifted. Admiral Choi was the first to recover. "Perhaps we should reconsider our approach," he suggested. An hour later, in a smaller meeting room, Lee watched as Han, Admiral Choi, and representatives from 3 alien worlds bent over star charts. The Kronos had reappeared in orbit, but now surrounded by ships from multiple species, a show of united front. "The first target should be here," Han was saying, pointing to a location near the outer planets. "A small Arcturus staging post, enough to prove what we're facing without triggering their main forces." Lee caught Han's eye across the table. He nodded slightly, acknowledging what they both knew. This fragile alliance was humanity's only hope against an enemy that had already destroyed one future. Outside the window, Earth turned peacefully, unaware that its fate was being decided by a handful of people and a ship that shouldn't exist yet. The bridge of the UES Kronos hummed with activity as Captain Taho Han studied the tactical display. Beside him, Captain Minji Lee marveled at the technology that allowed them to see through the perfect camouflage of the Arcturus base. What appeared to be an ordinary asteroid to conventional sensors was revealed as a massive military installation. "They've been here for years," Lee whispered. "Right on our doorstep." Han nodded grimly. "In my timeline, we didn't discover this particular base until after they'd launched attacks on 3 major colonies. The joint fleet hung in space behind them, 3 Earth vessels and 2 ships from the Volani, all retrofitted with simplified versions of the Kronos' scanning technology. It had taken weeks of delicate diplomacy to form this alliance, but now they were ready to strike. "All ships report ready, Captain," announced Lieutenant Jin, the communications officer. His console flickered briefly, the image distorting before stabilizing again. Han pretended not to notice the malfunction. These glitches were happening more frequently now. "Begin the attack pattern," he ordered. "Remember, their outer defenses will be invisible until hit. Target coordinates are being transmitted to all ships." The Cronus moved forward, its advanced weapons systems powering up. Beams of energy lanced out, striking seemingly empty space. Suddenly, shield arrays appeared where nothing had been visible before, flaring bright blue before failing. "They're returning fire," Jin called out. The ship rocked slightly as enemy weapons struck its shields. On the view screen, the Earth vessels moved into their assigned positions, targeting the now visible defense platforms. "Their technology is more advanced than our current ships can handle," Lee observed, watching one of the Earth vessels take heavy damage. "But they're holding their own because we know exactly where to hit." Han didn't respond immediately. He was watching a section of the tactical display that showed the Cronus itself. Something was wrong with the ship's aft section. It seemed to be flickering in and out of sensor range. Engineer Sungo Kang's voice came over the comm system, tight with stress. "Captain, we have a situation in engineering. The temporal core is experiencing severe fluctuations." "Can you stabilize it?" Han asked, already knowing the answer. "Not completely, sir. Sections of decks 12 through 15 are. They're phasing in and out of our reality." Lee looked at Han with alarm. "What does that mean?" Before he could answer, the ship shuddered violently. For a brief moment, the entire bridge seemed to become transparent, and Lee could see the stars right through the walls. Then everything snapped back to normal. "It means," Han said quietly, "that time is catching up with us." The battle continued around them. The Arcturus base was fighting back fiercely now, launching ships of its own. The Cronus cut through them with ease, its weapons making short work of vessels that would have been formidable to current Earth technology. When the last enemy ship exploded, Engineer Kang requested an immediate meeting. Han and Lee hurried to engineering, where they found Kang standing before the temporal core. The swirling energy at its center was no longer stable. Parts of it faded completely before brightening again, like a light with a bad connection. "The timeline is trying to correct itself," Kang explained, his face grave. "Our presence here, the changes we've made, they've created a paradox." "Explain," Lee demanded, though dread was already building in her stomach. "We came from a future where humanity was nearly destroyed because we didn't know about the Arcturus threat," Kang said. "But now we've warned you. We've helped you find them early. That means the future we came from won't happen the same way. And if that future doesn't happen," Han continued, "then the Cronus will never be built," Kang finished. "Or at least, not this version of it. The temporal mechanics are incredibly complex, but the basic problem is simple. We shouldn't exist anymore." As if to emphasize his point, a nearby console vanished completely for several seconds before reappearing. "How long do we have?" Han asked. "Days, maybe a week at most. The effect is accelerating." Lee looked between the two men from the future. "Is there any way to stop it, to stabilize the ship?" Kang shook his head. "No. But there might be a way to use it to our advantage." He pulled up a schematic showing the temporal core. "When the ship finally fails completely, the core will create a temporal implosion. Normally, that would be catastrophic, but if we can control it, direct it, we could create a weapon unlike anything this time period has ever seen." Han studied the diagram, then nodded slowly. "We need to get as much of our technology transferred to Earth vessels as possible, and then we need to find the main Arcturus fleet." "You're planning a suicide mission," Lee realized. "The Cronus is dying anyway," Han said simply. "This way, its death has meaning." As they spoke, another section of engineering faded from view, only to return moments later. A crew member walked through the area, unaware that for a brief moment, her legs had been visible walking through empty space. Lee placed her hand against a wall, feeling the solid metal beneath her fingers. How can something so real just stop existing? "That's the thing about paradoxes," Kang said softly. "Reality can only bend so far before it breaks."